The station hung in the darkness between stars, a massive structure built by 100 different species over 1,000 years. Zenith Prime was the heart of the Galactic Council, and today every chamber was filled with voices arguing about one thing: humanity. Diane sat alone in the human delegation box, a small space barely large enough for 3 chairs. Earth had only been part of the Council for 5 years, and most days they sent no one at all. Today was different. Today, the galaxy wanted to decide humanity's fate. The chamber stretched out before him like a great bowl, thousands of aliens sitting in their designated areas. Some breathed air like humans. Others sat in tanks of liquid or wore suits that pumped different gases. The luminari glowed with soft blue light, their crystalline bodies beautiful and strange. The craft were massive, covered in thick armor plating that made them look like walking fortresses. Between them sat dozens of other species, all watching, all waiting. "The humans are dangerous," General Thorzen said, his voice booming through the chamber. The craft commander stood at the center floor, his 4 arms gesturing widely. "They survive wounds that would kill any of us. They adapt to poisons, diseases, radiation. They have been in space for barely 50 years, and already they spread to 17 worlds. How long before they come for our worlds?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the war chorus section. Doyun counted at least 30 species nodding their heads, or equivalent body parts. "The humans are wonderful," Vayara said, floating forward. The luminary diplomat pulsed with gentle light as she spoke. "They help us colonize worlds we cannot touch. Their bodies withstand environments that kill us in minutes. They are not conquerors. They are gardeners, helping life spread where it could not go before." The Peace Coalition cheered. Doyan saw hope in their faces, or what passed for faces. They wanted humanity to be their salvation, their tool for expansion. Not both sides scared him equally. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to speak. Some called humans monsters. Others called them miracles. No one asked what humans wanted to be called. Finally, the council speaker raised 6 of his tentacles for silence. "The human delegation may now respond." Doyan stood and walked to the center floor. He felt thousands of eyes watching him, studying him like a specimen under glass. He was young for a diplomat, only 32, but Earth had chosen him because he stayed calm under pressure. Right now, he needed every bit of that calm. "Thank you for your concern," he began, keeping his voice steady. "Both those who fear us and those who hope to use us." Shocked sounds filled the chamber. Vayara's light flickered in surprise. "Yes, use us," Doyan continued. "The Peace Coalition wants us to colonize death worlds so you can expand your empires. The War Chorus wants us destroyed so you can sleep safely. Neither side has asked us what we want. You are one species among thousands," Thorzan growled. "You do not dictate terms to the galaxy. And the galaxy does not dictate terms to us," Doyan said. "Earth will not be decided for. We decide for ourselves." The chamber erupted. Aliens shouted in 100 languages. The speaker slammed his tentacles, demanding order, but chaos had already taken hold. Doyan turned and walked back to his delegation box. His hands shook as he sat down, but he kept his face calm. He touched the small communication device in his ear. "Message sent," he whispered light years away. Hidden in the shadow of a dead moon, Commander Haijin received the signal. She sat in the command chair of the stealth ship Whisper, surrounded by holographic displays showing Earth and every human colony in space. "Confirmation received," her communications officer reported. "All stations ready." Haijin had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. She was 41 years old, a veteran of Earth's brief conflicts with pirates and raiders in the outer colonies. She had never imagined commanding something like this. "Begin silence protocol," she ordered. Across the galaxy, on Earth in 16 colony worlds, the same thing happened in the same instant. Massive generators buried deep underground activated. Energy barriers spread outward from each human settlement. Invisible walls that bent light and radiation around them. To any outside observer, human worlds simply vanished. On the colony world of New Hanyang, Jiho watched the sky change. He was the colony administrator, responsible for 8,000 people who had come to this frontier world to build new lives. The stars disappeared as the barrier activated, replaced by perfect blackness. "Stay calm," he said over the colony-wide communication system. "This is planned. We are safe." But he heard the fear in his own voice. The plan was one thing. Living through it was another. Back on Zenith Prime, alarms began shrieking through the council chamber. Aliens rushed to their communication stations, trying to contact Earth. Every message went unanswered. Every sensor showed empty space where human worlds had been. "What have you done?" Vayara demanded, floating toward Doyan. "What did you do to them?" Thorzun roared, pushing through the crowd toward the human delegation box. Doyan stood his ground, though his heart hammered in his chest. "We did nothing to them. We protected ourselves. Earth and all human colonies are safe. But we will not sit here while you decide whether to enslave us or destroy us. This is an act of war." Thorzun's hand moved toward his weapon. "Against whom?" Doyan asked calmly. "We attacked no one. We simply removed ourselves from your debate." The council speaker tried to restore order, but it was too late. The Peace Coalition accused the War Chorus of destroying humanity. The War Chorus accused the Peace Coalition of hiding them. Within hours, the two factions stopped talking to each other entirely. On Earth, deep in a secure facility in South Korea, Taeyong watched data streams flowing across multiple screens. He was the lead scientist of the Silence Protocol, the man who had spent 7 years developing the technology that now hid humanity from the galaxy. Barriers holding at 98%. "Efficiency," his assistant reported. "How long can we maintain this?" Asked the government liaison standing behind them. Taeyong adjusted his glasses, a nervous habit from childhood. 3 months, maybe 4. After that, the energy requirements become impossible to sustain. Then we have 3 months to prepare. "Prepare for what?" Taeyong asked, though he already knew the answer. "For whatever comes next." In orbit around a dozen different worlds, ships began moving. The craft assembled their war fleets. The Luminari prepared their defense forces. Neither trusted the other anymore. Both blamed the other for humanity's disappearance. And in the darkness between stars, hidden by their barriers, humans watched and waited. They had bought themselves time, but time for what? Some wanted to stay hidden forever. Others wanted to reveal themselves and demand respect. A few whispered about weapons, about showing the galaxy why humanity should be feared. Haijin listened to all the debates among her crew. She understood their fear and their anger. But she also knew that their isolation could not last. Eventually, the barriers would fail. Eventually, humanity would have to face the galaxy again. The only question was what they would face it as. Victims, conquerors, or something else entirely. Outside the Whisper's viewports, stars shined in the darkness, indifferent to the struggles of those who lived beneath their light. Somewhere in that vast ocean of space, other species argued about humanity's nature. But humanity itself was still deciding what that nature would be. The galaxy had forced them to make a choice. Now they had to live with the consequences. 3 weeks after humanity vanished, the galaxy began tearing itself apart. Minseo stood in the engineering bay of the barrier station on New Hanyang, watching power readings climb higher than she liked. She was 35, had built reactor systems on 4 different worlds, and she had never seen technology pushed this hard for this long. "We are at 104% capacity," her junior engineer said, worry clear in his voice. "I know," Minsayo replied, making adjustments to the energy flow. "Keep monitoring. If we hit 110%, we start shutting down non-essential systems." "Which systems are non-essential?" Minsayo did not answer. Everything on a colony world felt essential when you were hiding from a hostile galaxy. Outside the barrier, sensors detected ships passing through their system 3 times in the past week. Krath warships searching. They flew right past New Hanyang without seeing it, but each time they came closer to the correct search pattern. Eventually, they would find the distortions the barriers created. Eventually, they would know where to look. On Earth, Haijin had returned from her stealth ship to coordinate the global defense network. She sat in a conference room buried half a mile under Seoul, surrounded by military commanders and government officials from every nation. "The Krath have burned 17 worlds so far," the intelligence officer reported, bringing up holographic images. "Not human worlds. They are targeting any planet that might be hiding us. Worlds with similar atmospheres, similar gravity. They do not care who lives there." Haijin watched the images of burning cities, of refugee ships fleeing into space. Species that had nothing to do with humanity were dying because the Krath feared what they could not see. "The Luminari are fighting back," another officer added. 3 major battles in the past 10 days. The Peace Coalition has allied with neutral species to stop the Krath advance. "So we started a galactic civil war," the Minister of Defense said quietly. "No," Haijin corrected him. "The galaxy's divisions were already there. We just made them impossible to ignore. That does not help the people dying out there." Haijin had no answer for that. She lay awake every night thinking about those deaths, about the consequences of Earth's choice. But she also knew that letting the galaxy decide humanity's fate would have led to death too. Maybe not as fast, but just as certain. "How long until the barriers fail?" the minister asked. "Taeyang estimates 3 more months," Haijin said. "Less if we need to expand them or if they take damage from testing. And then we reveal ourselves. But not as we were before. We reveal ourselves ready." On Zenith Prime, Doyan remained in custody, though his captors called it protective detention. The Krath had taken control of the station after the council collapsed into chaos. They kept him in a comfortable room with all the food he needed, but the door was locked, and guards stood outside. He spent his days reading reports that his guards carelessly left where he could see them. Reports about the war spreading across the galaxy. Reports about species choosing sides or trying desperately to remain neutral. Reports about the search for humanity growing more desperate and violent. Sometimes Vayara visited him. The luminary diplomat had aged in the past weeks, her light dimmer than before. "You should have trusted us," she said during one visit, her voice sad. "Trusted you to do what?" Doyan asked. "Use us to colonize worlds? You called us wonderful, but you saw us as tools, not as equals. Better than what the Krath wanted. Better than extinction, yes, but still not freedom." Vayara's light flickered. "Freedom is a luxury few species in this galaxy enjoy. Most of us serve the strong or die. Then maybe the galaxy needs to change." She left without responding. Doyan knew she thought he was naive, idealistic. Maybe he was. But he had seen enough of galactic politics to know that accepting servitude to the kind masters just meant servitude. On New Hanyang, Jiho dealt with a different kind of problem. The colony was restless. People wanted to know what was happening outside the barrier. They wanted to know if Earth still existed, if their families on other worlds were safe. He held town meetings every week, trying to keep everyone calm. "My son is on Mars colony," one woman said at the latest meeting. "I cannot contact him. I do not know if he is alive." "Mars colony activated their barrier at the same time we did," Jiho assured her. "They are safe. You do not know that. None of us know anything." She was right, and everyone in the room knew it. They were isolated, blind, and vulnerable despite their protection. If the barrier failed, they would have no warning before craft ships appeared in their sky. Jiho stood before his people and wished he had better answers. He was 43 years old, had led this colony for 6 years, and had always believed that honesty was the best policy. But right now, the truth was frightening and uncertain. "I cannot promise you safety," he finally said. "I cannot promise you that everything will be fine. But I can promise you that Earth has a plan. Commander Haijin and her team are not hiding us out of fear. They are preparing us for something. We have to trust them." "Trust them to do what?" someone shouted. "To keep us free," Jiho answered. "Whatever that takes." Back in the underground facility on Earth, Taeyong worked 20 hours a day, sleeping in brief intervals at his desk. The silence protocol had been his greatest achievement, but now he was building something even more important. "The genetic suppressors are ready for testing," his lead researcher reported. The woman, Yunhee, had been with him since the beginning of the project. She understood what they were trying to do, even if she worried about the risks. "Run the simulation again," Taeyong ordered. "I want to be certain." The simulation showed human DNA, but not as it naturally appeared. Their analysis over the past 5 years had revealed something shocking. Human genes contained artificial markers, signs of deliberate engineering millions of years old. Someone or something had modified humanity's ancestors, giving them the abilities that now made them both valuable and dangerous to the galaxy. The suppressors Taeyong developed could turn those modifications off. A human taking the suppressor treatment would become normal, losing the enhanced healing, the environmental adaptation, the unusual strength that appeared in moments of crisis. Why would we want to be weaker? One of the military liaisons had asked when Taeyong first proposed this research. "Because we want to prove we can choose," Taeyong had answered. "If we can turn our abilities off, we can also control them. We become masters of our own nature, not slaves to it." Now, watching the simulation run successfully for the 100th time, Taeyong allowed himself a small smile. They had bought time with the silence protocol. They would buy respect with this. Haijin received Taeyong's report and immediately called a meeting of the Global Defense Council. The leaders of every nation gathered virtually, their holographic images filling the conference room. "We have a choice to make," Haijin told them. "In 2 months, the barriers will begin to fail. We must decide what we show the galaxy when we reveal ourselves." "We show them strength," the Russian general said. "We reveal our positions with weapons ready. Make them understand that attacking us means war." "We show them peace," the Brazilian president countered. "We offer to help colonize hostile worlds as the Luminari wanted. Make ourselves valuable allies." Haijin listened to them argue, same as they had argued for weeks. Finally, she spoke up. "We show them control," she said. "Taeyong has developed technology that lets us suppress our enhanced abilities. We can prove to the galaxy that we are not weapons waiting to explode. We are a species that chooses what we are." The room went silent. Then everyone started talking at once. "You want to make us weaker? This could change everything. The Krath will see it as surrender. The Luminari will see it as wisdom." Haijin waited for the noise to die down. "We do not make ourselves weaker. We prove we are strong enough to have power and choose not to use it. That is the only kind of strength the galaxy will respect in the long term." The vote took 3 hours. In the end, they agreed. Humanity would reveal itself, but on its own terms. 2 months later, as power reserves reached critical levels across all barrier stations, Minseo received the order she had been waiting for. "Begin shutdown sequence," she told her team. "Controlled collapse over the next 6 hours." As the barriers fell, every human world broadcast the same message on every frequency. Not a plea, not a threat. A simple statement: we are here. We choose to live among you as equals. This is not negotiable. And then, as the galaxy watched humanity reappear like ghosts returning to life, every human colony transmitted detailed scientific data about the genetic suppressors. The message was clear. Humans could control what they were. They were not weapons. They were not tools. They were people who had chosen their own path. The galaxy fell silent, shocked by what they saw. Then the real mystery began. Deep space sensors across dozens of systems detected the same thing simultaneously. Massive ships emerging from dark space, vessels built with technology older than any known civilization. And they were all heading toward human space. The ancient ships moved through space like slow, terrible storms. They were massive beyond reason, each one the size of a small moon, covered in metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They made no sound, broadcast no messages, and responded to no attempts at communication. Captain Junho stood on the bridge of Earth's experimental warship, dauntless, watching the closest vessel approach. His crew of 200 had trained for 3 years to operate this ship, humanity's first true warship, built with combined human and alien technology, purchased before the barriers went up. But nothing had prepared them for this. "Distance to target?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. At 38, Junho was the youngest captain in Earth's small fleet, chosen because he stayed calm when everyone else panicked. 5 million kilometers in closing, his navigation officer reported. "Speed is constant. They will reach Earth orbit in 17 hours. Junho pulled up tactical data on the main screen. 12 of these ancient ships had emerged from dark space across the galaxy. 5 were heading toward Earth, 3 toward Mars colony. The others moved toward various human settlements. Every single human world was being approached. Any response to our hails? Nothing, Captain. They might not even be receiving our transmissions. On Zenith Prime, chaos had transformed into terrified unity. The War Chorus and Peace Coalition forgot their conflict as they tracked the ancient vessels. No one knew what they were, but everyone knew they were dangerous. Doyon watched from his quarters as emergency broadcasts filled every screen. The Krath, who feared nothing, were pulling their fleets back to defensive positions. The Luminari, who had explored space for 10,000 years, had no records of ships like these. Then Veyara appeared at his door, her usual guards absent. "You need to come with me," she said urgently. "Now? Why would I trust you?" "Because we just detected what those ships are doing, and you need to see it before everyone else does." Doyon followed her through the station to a secure observation room. Inside, Krath General Thorzen was already there, along with representatives from a dozen other species. Everyone looked afraid. "Show him," Veyara said to the technician. The holographic display showed one of the ancient ships, but with sensor data overlaid. Energy readings spiked across the visible spectrum. "They are scanning," the technician explained. "Not just passive sensors. Active genetic scanners. They are analyzing the DNA of every living thing in range." "Scanning for what?" Doyon asked, though part of him already knew. "For humans," Thorzen said grimly. "Only humans. They ignore every other species completely." Doyon felt cold spread through his chest. "How long until they reach Earth?" 16 hours. Maybe less. On Earth, Haijin coordinated the defense with growing desperation. Every weapon humanity possessed was being moved into position. Orbital platforms, missile batteries, the few warships they had managed to build. All of it felt like trying to stop a hurricane with a paper shield. "We need to evacuate the civilian population," one general argued. "Evacuate to where?" Hai-Jin responded. "These ships are going to every human world. There is nowhere to run." Taeyang burst into the command center, his tablet displaying data that made no sense. "I found something," he said, breathing hard from running. "In the old genetic markers. There is a code embedded in our DNA." "A code saying what?" Hai-Jin demanded. "I do not know yet. But it is artificial. Definitely artificial. Whoever modified our ancestors left a message in our genes. These ships might be here to read that message. Or to silence it," Hai-Jin said quietly, "across the galaxy." On the frontier world of New Hanyang, Jiho organized evacuation procedures, even though he knew they were useless. The colony had no warships, few weapons, and no way to stop something the size of a moon. But he refused to let his people die without trying. Then his communication console lit up with an incoming transmission, not from Earth, but from the surface of New Hanyang itself. From the old ruins in the northern valley. The ruins had been there when the colonists arrived, ancient structures that predated any known civilization. Soman, the colony's xenarchaeologist, had been studying them for 3 years. "Jiho, you need to come to the ruins immediately." Soman's voice came through, excited and terrified in equal measure. "They are active. After 1,000,000 years of being dead, they just came online." Jiho took a transport shuttle to the northern valley, flying over farmland that colonists had worked hard to establish. When he landed near the ruins, he found Soman standing before a massive structure that now glowed with soft blue light. "It happened the moment those ancient ships appeared," Soman explained. She was 42, had spent her entire career studying dead civilizations, and had never seen anything like this. "The ruins across the galaxy are all activating simultaneously. Every dead site we have ever found. What are they doing?" "Broadcasting. All of them are sending the same signal." She pulled up a translation on her tablet. It says, "The inheritors have been found." Inheritors of what? Before Soman could answer, the massive structure began projecting holographic images. Doyan, Hai-Jin, Junho, and countless other humans across the galaxy saw the same thing at the same moment. The images showed a species that looked almost human, but not quite. Taller, stronger, with subtle differences in their bone structure. They built cities across thousands of worlds, explored galaxies, created wonders. Then they created something else. Weapons, not ships or bombs, but living weapons. Creatures engineered from their own genetic code, designed to adapt and survive and spread. These biological weapons were released on enemy worlds, where they evolved and destroyed entire civilizations. But the weapons became too effective. They began targeting their creators. The ancient species realized too late that they had made something they could not control. The hologram showed their solution. They scattered the weapon genetics across primitive worlds, embedding them in simple life forms. On Earth, they modified early primates, giving them the survival abilities that would eventually become humanity. Then they waited, watching to see if these modified creatures could evolve into something better than weapons. Something that could choose. "We are not natural," Hai-Jin whispered, watching the hologram in the command center. "We are engineered. The whole time, we were created as weapons." "No," Taeyang said, studying the data streaming from the ruins. "We were created as a test. The ancient species wanted to see if weapon genetics could become something more. If given enough time, could a weapon species learn to be people?" The hologram continued. It showed the ancient species dying out, destroyed by their own creations. Before they vanished, they built watchers. Automated systems that would monitor the scattered. weapon genetics, and report back if any developed true sentience. The ancient ships were those watchers. Finally returning after millions of years, Captain Chuho received new orders from Earth. Do not engage. The ancient ships were not attacking. They were studying, evaluating, trying to determine if humanity had passed the test. But what if we fail? His weapons officer asked. What if they decide we are still just weapons? Then they will destroy us, Jiho said simply. Just like the original weapon species destroyed their creators. On Zenith Prime, Doyun understood now why the galaxy had reacted to humanity so strongly. On some deep, instinctive level, every species recognized what humans were, descendants of the ancient enemy that had nearly destroyed the galaxy millions of years ago. You should have told us, Thorzan growled, his forearms clenched in rage and fear. You should have told us what you were. We did not know, Doyan said. Until today, we thought we were natural. We thought we evolved like everyone else. Does it matter? Vayara asked quietly. The ancient ships are here. They will decide humanity's fate, just as we tried to decide it for you. The question is, what will they decide? The hologram from the ruins changed, showing new information. The ancient watchers had criteria for judgment. A weapon species that remained aggressive, that conquered and destroyed, would be eliminated. But a weapon species that learned peace, that chose cooperation, that controlled its own nature, would be allowed to live. They are testing us, Haman realized, still standing in the Northern Valley. Everything that happened, the council debate, the galaxy's fear of us, our choice to hide and develop the genetic suppressors, it was all part of the test. Did we pass? Jiho asked. I do not know, Soman admitted. But we are about to find out. The ancient ships reached Earth orbit. They took up positions around the planet, completely silent. Every human on Earth and in the colonies held their breath, waiting. Then, after an hour of silence, the ships broadcast their judgment. Not in words, but in a data stream that every receiver in the galaxy could understand. Taeyang translated it first. They are saying that humanity has demonstrated sufficient self-awareness and control. We passed the basic criteria for survival. Basic criteria? Haijin asked. What does that mean? The data stream continued, and Taeyang's face went pale as he read it. It means they are leaving. But they are also leaving behind something else. Coordinates. Thousands of them. Locations of other seeded species across the galaxy. Other descendants of the ancient weapon genetics. Other tests happening on other worlds. There are more species like us? Dozens, maybe hundreds. All being tested. All trying to prove they are more than weapons. The ancient ships began moving away from human space, their mission complete. But as they departed, they left behind one final message, projected on every screen across the galaxy. The first test is complete. The second test begins now. Prove you can coexist with your own kind. Doyan, watching from Zenith Prime, understood immediately. Humanity had proven they could control themselves. Now they had to prove they could peacefully contact other species with the same weapon heritage. Species that might not have developed the same self-control. Species that might still be weapons waiting to explode. The galaxy had argued over humanity, and the ancient ships had answered. But they had answered with a new question, one that humanity would have to solve themselves. And somewhere in the dark, other ancient ships moved toward other worlds. Where other tests were taking place, the galaxy did not know what to do with the truth. Every species that had argued over humanity now faced a worse reality. Humanity was not unique. There were others like them. Others who might not be as peaceful. Chi-1 sat in a recording studio in Seoul, preparing to broadcast a message that would reach every corner of known space. She was 51 years old, a philosopher and professor, who had spent her career studying ethics and human nature. Now Earth had asked her to speak for all of humanity. "Are you ready?" The technician asked. She one nodded, though she did not feel ready. How could anyone be ready to address a frightened galaxy? The camera activated. Jiwan looked directly into it and began speaking in a calm, measured voice. "My name is Jiwan. I am a human from Earth. I am speaking today not as a leader or representative, but as someone who has spent her life thinking about what it means to be human. Now we all know the truth. Humans were created as weapons, modified from ancient genetics designed to destroy. Many of you are afraid of what we are. Many of us are afraid of ourselves." She paused, letting that sink in. "But here is what I believe. We are not defined by how we were made. We are defined by what we choose to become. Yes, our ancestors were weapons, but we are not our ancestors. We have built civilizations that value life. We have created art and music and stories. We have learned to love, to hope, to sacrifice for others. These things were not programmed into us. We chose them." The broadcast reached Zenith Prime, where Goyan watched from the conference hall. The council had reconvened, but this time the meeting was different. This time, humans were not being judged. They were being invited to help judge what came next. General Thorzen stood to speak, his massive form imposing as always, but his voice was different now. Less aggressive, more cautious. "The Krath Empire acknowledges we were wrong about humanity," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. "We saw you as threats. We see now that you fought to become more than what you were created to be. But the coordinates the ancient ships left behind show 47 other seeded species. We have already detected 3 of them. They are not peaceful like you." He brought up holographic displays showing 3 different species. One had already wiped out 2 nearby civilizations. Another was expanding through military conquest. The third had not achieved space travel yet, but their planet showed signs of endless warfare. "What do we do about them?" Thorzen asked, looking at Doyun. "Do we destroy them before they become threats? Do we wait and hope they become like humanity? You tell us. You understand them better than we ever could." Doyun stood slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the chamber. This was the real test. Not whether humanity could control themselves, but whether they could show wisdom in dealing with others who shared their violent heritage. "We do not destroy them," Doyan said firmly, "and we do not abandon them. We reach out. We show them that another path is possible. Some may be too far gone," Vyara said, her light pulsing uncertainly. "Some may never choose peace. Then we contain them," Doyan replied. "We protect other species from them, but we do not kill them for what they were created to be. We give them the same chance the galaxy gave us, even if it was a chance given reluctantly." The council debated for hours. Some species wanted immediate military action against the seeded species showing aggression. Others wanted to do nothing, hoping the problem would resolve itself. Humanity argued for a middle path, contact, containment if necessary, but always leaving the door open for change. On Earth, Haijin coordinated with Junho and the other fleet commanders. If humanity's proposal passed the council, Earth would need ships ready to make contact with the other seeded species. Not warships, but diplomatic vessels protected by military escorts. "This is dangerous," Junho said during their planning session. "These other species might see us as enemies just for being like them. Or worse, they might see us as weak for choosing peace." "Let them," Haijin replied. "We spent months proving to the galaxy that we could control our nature. Now we prove we can help others do the same." On New Hanyang, Soman continued studying the activated ruins. The ancient structures were broadcasting, constantly now, showing detailed information about the Seeded Species Project. She learned that the original weapon genetics had been scattered to 200 worlds. Most had died out. Some had never developed sentience. But 47 had created civilizations, and each one was being tested by the Ancient Watchers. The test is not just about survival, Soman explained to Geo. It is about coexistence. The ancient species destroyed themselves because they never learned to live together. Every civilization they created eventually turned weapons on its neighbors. The Seeded Species Project was their last attempt to answer a question. Can intelligent life exist without self-destruction? And humanity is supposed to prove it can. Not just humanity. All 47 seeded species together. If even one succeeds in helping the others, the test is passed. If all 47 destroy themselves or others, the test fails. What happens if the test fails? Soman looked at the ancient structures glowing around them. I do not know. But I do not think we want to find out. Back in Seoul, Jiwon's broadcast continued, now addressing the other seeded species directly, hoping some of them were listening. To those who share our origin, you are not alone. You are created as weapons, but you can become more. We know because we did. It is not easy. We struggled. We fought. We made mistakes. But we chose to control what we were rather than let it control us. You can make the same choice. The broadcast reached one of the aggressive seeded species, a civilization called the Rethak. They had recently destroyed 2 neighboring civilizations and were preparing to attack a third. Their leaders watched Jiwon's message with contempt. Weakness, the Rethak War Master hissed. They deny their nature. They will be destroyed by those who accept what they are. But not every Rethak agreed. In hidden chambers and secret meetings, some questioned whether endless war was truly their destiny. They saw what humanity had accomplished. They wondered if another path was possible. On Zenith Prime, the council vote took place. After 3 days of debate, they reached a decision. Humanity would be given authority to contact and, if necessary, contain the other seeded species. But they would not operate alone. The Luminari would send diplomatic specialists. The craft would provide military support if needed. Dozens of species volunteered resources. This is unprecedented, Viara said to Doyon after the vote. The galaxy is uniting around a human initiative. A month ago, half these species wanted you destroyed. Fear unites people, Doyon replied, but so does hope. We are giving them both. Fear of what happens if the seeded species go wrong, and hope that they can be guided right. Captain Junho received his orders. Take the Dauntless to make first contact with the nearest seeded species. They were called the Kellner, and they had just achieved faster-than-light travel. Unlike the Rethak, the Kellner had not shown aggression yet. They were humanity's best chance for peaceful contact. We leave in 6 hours, Junho told his crew. This is the most important mission humanity has ever undertaken. We are not just representing Earth. We are representing the possibility of redemption for every species created as a weapon. The Dauntless departed from Earth orbit, escorted by 2 luminary science vessels and 1 Krath destroyer. It was a strange alliance, species that had been ready to war with each other, now working together because humanity had shown them something worth protecting. On the journey to Kellner space, Junho spent hours reviewing everything they knew about the species. They were roughly humanoid, with 4 arms and tough, scaly skin. Their world was harsh, covered in deserts and volcanic fields. They had survived through incredible resilience and adaptation, just like humans. What if they attack us? His weapons officer asked during a briefing. Then we defend ourselves, Junho replied. But we do not attack first. We give them every chance to choose peace. And if they choose war, then we contain them. We protect other species from them, but we do not give up on them. Never give up on them. The fleet arrived in Kellner space 3 weeks later. Sensors immediately detected Kellner ships moving to intercept. Defensive, but not yet aggressive. JUNHO opened a channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. Kellner vessels, this is Captain Junho of Earth. We come in peace. We share your origin. Like you, we were created as weapons. Unlike you, we have chosen to be something more. We want to help you make the same choice. Silence answered him. Long, tense minutes passed. Then a response came, in broken but understandable language. You are like us, weapon-born? Yes, Junho replied. And we survived by learning to control what we are. Let us show you how. The Kellner ships held their position. Junho could feel his crew holding their breath. This moment would define everything that came after. Finally, the Kellner responded. Come, we will listen. But approach carefully. We do not trust easily. Neither do we, Junho said, allowing himself a small smile. Neither do we. Back on Earth, Haijin watched the successful contact with relief. 1 down, 46 to go. Some would be peaceful like the Kellner. Others would be hostile. But humanity had committed to trying. Jiwan's broadcast ended with a simple statement that echoed across the galaxy. We were created to destroy. We chose to build. That is the only choice that matters. Join us. The message reached civilizations both old and young, both peaceful and warlike. Some rejected it. Some embraced it. But everyone heard it, and everyone understood. Humanity had stopped arguing about what they were. They had decided what they would become. And in the darkness between stars, the ancient watchers observed, recording data, measuring results. The second test had begun. The question was no longer whether weapon species could control themselves. The question was whether they could save each other. 6 months after first contact with the Kellner, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Humanity had successfully contacted 12 of the 47 seeded species. 8 chose peaceful cooperation. 3 remained hostile and were under containment. 1, the Rethok, continued attacking nearby civilizations, despite all attempts at diplomacy. And everything changed when a graduate student on Mars' colony made a discovery that no one expected. Her name was Myray, 24 years old, studying ancient languages in the colony's research facility. She had been analyzing broadcasts from the ancient ruins when she noticed something strange in the oldest transmissions. Hidden beneath the obvious messages was another layer of data, compressed and encrypted. Professor, you need to see this, she said to her supervisor, her hands shaking as she pulled up the decrypted information. What she found was a recording. Not from the ancient species that created the weapon genetics, but from someone even older. The true creators. The species that came before Dot. The recording spread across the galaxy within hours. Every screen, every communications device, every ship received the same message. The ancient watchers had been broadcasting it all along, waiting for someone to find it. The hologram showed beings that looked nothing like humans or any known species. They were made of something like light, their forms constantly shifting and changing. They spoke in a language that should have been impossible to understand, yet everyone who heard it understood perfectly. We are the architects, the being said. We created the species you call the weapon makers. We created them to test a theory. Can intelligent life exist without destroying itself? They failed. They created weapons from their own genetics and died fighting their own creations. But before they died, they tried our test again. They scattered those weapon genetics, hoping one would succeed where they failed. Doyan watched the recording from Zenith Prime, his mind racing. The ancient species we thought were the creators were just another test subject? It appears so, Bayara said beside him, her light flickering in confusion. The architects are testing whether any species can achieve true peace. Each failure tries to create success from their own failure. How many generations of tests have there been? The hologram answered as if it heard the question. 17 generations. 17 species have reached the stars, created weapons, and destroyed themselves. 17 times they scattered weapon genetics hoping for redemption. You are the descendants of the 17th generation. You are our last attempt. Last attempt, Thorzon repeated grimly. What happens if we fail? The recording continued. If the weapon species destroy themselves or others, we will sterilize this galaxy and begin again elsewhere. We have done so 16 times before. We will do so again if necessary. Hygiene stood in Earth's command center, feeling cold spread through her entire body. They will kill everyone, not just the seeded species, but every species in the galaxy. Billions of civilizations. How long do we have? Someone asked. The test continues until all seeded species make their choice, Taeyong said, analyzing the data. Peace or war? Unity or destruction? Once all 47 have chosen, the architects will judge. On New Hanyang, Somin studied the recording with growing horror. This explains why every ancient ruin in the galaxy is from a destroyed civilization. The architects have been running this test for millions of years. Every galaxy they visit either passes or gets reset. Reset, Geo said quietly. That is a gentle word for genocide. They do not see it that way. To them, we are all just experiments. Data points in a cosmic study. Captain Juno received new orders. Find as many seeded species as possible and convince them to choose peace. The deadline was unclear, but every day that passed brought the galaxy closer to judgment. The Dauntless traveled to the Rethok homeworld, the most aggressive of the seeded species. They had conquered 12 systems and showed no signs of stopping. Other species wanted to destroy them, but humanity argued for one more chance. Rethok Command, this is Captain Junho of Earth. He broadcast as his ship entered orbit. We need to speak with you. The survival of every species in the galaxy depends on the choices we make now. The Rethok response came quickly. We choose strength. We choose conquest. That is our nature. It was our nature too, Juno replied. But we learned to choose something else. You can do the same. Why would we? We are winning. We are strong. Junho made a decision that would either save or doom the mission. He broadcast the architects' recording to the Rethok homeworld, letting them see the truth of what they were and what would happen if they continued their path. Rethok fell silent for 3 days. Their fleets stopped advancing. Their war masters gathered in emergency councils. Then their leader, a massive warrior called Kethrin, sent a response. You show us we are created as weapons. You show us we are tests. You show us we will be killed along with everyone else if we do not change. Catherine's voice carried rage and fear in equal measure. You ask us to deny our nature because someone else threatens us. That is not choice. That is coercion. You are right, Junho said, surprising everyone on his bridge. It is coercion. The architects have trapped us all in a test we never asked to take. But we still have a choice. We can fail their test and prove them right, or we can pass it and prove them wrong. What is the difference? Either way, they control us. The difference is what happens after. If we pass, we prove that life can exist without destroying itself. We prove the architects wrong about needing to reset galaxies. We become truly free. Another long silence followed. Then Catherine responded, We will consider this. But if we choose peace, it will be our choice, not yours and not the architects. Remember that. I will, Junho promised Dot on Earth. Jiwon prepared another broadcast, this one different from before. She had spent weeks thinking about what to say after learning the truth about the architects. We are all experiments, she said when the broadcast began. Every species in this galaxy exists because the architects allow it. They test us, judge us, and destroy us if we fail. Many of you are angry about this. I am angry too. We deserve to exist on our own terms, not as subjects in someone else's study. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But here is what I choose to believe. The architects created us, but they do not define us. They gave us life and intelligence. What we do with those gifts is ours to decide. Yes, they threaten to destroy us if we fail. But every day we choose peace is a day we prove we are more than their experiment. We become real. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. Some species rejected it, saying they would rather die free than live as experiments. Others embraced it, seeing hope in Jiwan's words. Back on Zenith Prime, the Galactic Council faced a decision. They could unite to fight the architects, try to destroy the ancient ships before judgment came. Or they could work together to pass the test, proving that intelligent life could coexist peacefully. Fighting them is suicide, Thorzin said, showing tactical analysis. Their technology is millions of years beyond ours. We would lose in days, maybe hours. Then we pass their test, Vayara said. We unite every species, including the seeded ones. We show the architects that peace is possible. Some of the seeded species will not cooperate, another delegate argued. The Rethak might choose peace, but there are others more violent than them. What do we do about species that refuse to change? Doyan stood to speak. We give them a choice, but we do not let them destroy others while they decide. We contain them, protect their neighbors, but leave the door open for them to change. And we do it together, all species working as one. That is the only way to pass this test. The vote was unanimous. The galaxy would unite to pass the architect's test, not through force, but through cooperation. Over the next months, humanity continued reaching out to the remaining seeded species. Some chose peace immediately. Others needed more time. A few remained hostile, but they were contained by combined forces from dozens of species working together. Myray, the student who discovered the architect's recording, made another discovery in the ancient data. Hidden even deeper was a final message, this one from the architects themselves. We created 17 generations of tests, the message said. We destroyed 16 galaxies when they failed. But we begin to wonder, are we testing them, or are they testing us? We created life to see if it could avoid destroying itself. But we destroyed that life when it failed our standards. Are we any better than the weapon species we judge? Taeyang analyzed the message carefully. This was recorded recently, within the last year. The architects are questioning their own purpose. What does that mean for us? Haijin asked. It means they might be willing to listen. If we can show them something new, something they have never seen before, we might be able to change their minds. Captain Jun-Ho, still negotiating with the Rethak, had an idea. He broadcast a proposal to Earth, to the Council, and to every species listening. We should not try to pass the architect's test, he said. We should ask them to pass ours. The galaxy listened as Jun-Ho explained. Instead of proving they could avoid self-destruction, they should prove that the architect's method was wrong. Destroying civilizations that failed was itself a failure of wisdom. If the architects truly valued intelligent life, they should help failing species succeed rather than exterminating them. We challenge them to do better, Juno concluded, just as they challenged us. It was audacious. It was dangerous. It might get them all killed. Doyan, Haijin, Jiwan, and every human leader agreed. They sent the challenge to the ancient ships, knowing it could be their last message. The architects went silent for 1 week. Every ancient ship stopped broadcasting, stopped moving, stopped responding. The galaxy held its breath. Then they answered. not with words, but with action. The ancient ships began transmitting new data, coordinates to millions of worlds beyond the current galaxy.